Have you blokes got enough money to take a cab?
Yes, half a sovereign for you, my man.
Right, you are. Where to, Governor?
The Church of St. Monica on the Edgware Road, and another half sovereign for you if you get us there in 20 minutes.
We'll hear the rest of Dr. Watson's story in just a second, but let me tell you something. If you're going to have chicken for dinner tomorrow night, or any night, don't forget to serve that chicken with Petri California Sauterne. Believe me, Petri Sauterne is just about the last word in white wines. It's beautifully golden in color, it's delicate and intriguing in flavor, and it's just, well, you taste it and see for yourself. If you want a delicious white wine, you certainly want Petri Sauterne. Well, Doctor, again, you broke off your story at the most exciting point. Did you and Sherlock Holmes reach that church inside the 20 minutes?
Yes, Mr. Bartell, we did, but the other carriages were there before us. Holmes went into the church after telling me to guard the outside. I must have waited for 10 minutes or more before Mr. Geoffrey Norton and Miss Adler came out. Spoke a few words to each other, and then left in their separate conveyances. A moment later, Holmes, still dressed as a stable hand, came striding out of the church and down the steps towards me. He was obviously very excited.
Watson, have they left?
Yes, in separate cabs. I overheard him say that he was going back to his office, and she said, I shall drive out in the park at 5 o'clock as usual.
Splendid. Then come on. We can return to Baker Street.
What happened inside the church, Holmes?
They were married.
Married?
Of course. The ceremony would have been illegal if performed afternoon. That accounted for their wild dash to the church. Jump into the cab, old fellow.
Where to now, Governor?
221B Baker Street.
Oh, so they got married, eh?
Yes, and it may amuse you to know that I acted as witness at the ceremony.
You did, but how did that happen?
Their own witness had failed to appear, and I was dragged into the breach. The bride gave me this sovereign as a memento. I think I'll wear it on my watch chain in memory of the occasion.
What an amazing situation. Things begin to look better for the king, don't they? Now that she's Mrs. Norton, the chances are that she won't want to expose His Majesty after all.
I hope so, Watson, I hope so. But we can't afford to take any chances. I think the time is ripe for us to come to closer grips with the lady.
Well, Holmes, now that we've eaten, perhaps you'll tell me your plan.
With pleasure, my dear fellow. And while I'm so doing, I'll proceed with applying the makeup of my new disguise.
Another disguise? What's it to be this
I think
time?
the character and appearance of an amiable, simple-minded, nonconformist clergyman would be the most suited to my plan for entering Miss Adler's house.
You're going to try and enter, then?
I must, my dear fellow. I'm sure the photograph is there. Miss Adler, or rather, Mrs. Norton, who will return from her drive in the park at 6:30. We must be at Bryony Lodge to meet her.
And what then?
You must leave that to me. I've already made my arrangements. There is only one point on which I must insist. You must not interfere, come what may, you understand?
I'm to remain neutral.
Yes. There will be some small unpleasantness. Don't join in. It will end in my being conveyed into the house. As soon as I'm able to, I shall open one of the windows. You're to watch from the outside. When I raise my hand, you will throw an object that I shall give you through the window and at the same time cry, fire. You follow me?
Entirely, but what am I to throw?
Oh, it's nothing very formidable. Here it is.
Looks like a great big cigar.
Just
What
an
is it?
Ordinary plumber's smoke rocket. Fitted with a cap at either end to make it self-lighting. Your task is confined to throwing it through the window. When you raise the cry of fire, it will be taken up by quite a number of people. You may then walk to the end of the street, and I'll rejoin you in 10 minutes. I hope I've made myself clear.
Perfectly.
Good. And now, old fellow, as soon as I've donned my clerical attire, let's be on our way. There's no time to be lost.
Nearly 6:30, Holmes. We've been pacing up and down in front of her house for half an hour now. I hope she does come back.
I'm sure she will.
There seem to be a lot of loafers hanging round her gate.
All part of my conspiracy, old chap. You'll see them play their parts in a few minutes.
You still think the photograph is inside the house?
Yes, it's most unlikely that she carries it about with her. Remember, the king told us it was a large frame picture. And also remember that she'd planned to use it within a few days. It must be where she can lay her hands on it. It must be inside her house.
But her house has been burgled twice.
They didn't know how to look.
How will you look?
I won't. I'll get her to show me.
Well, she'll refuse.
She won't be able to... Shh. There comes the carriage now. Remember, Watson, carry out my orders to the letter.
You can trust me.
Good luck.
Blimey, here comes the Duchess of Diddley. Let's put out a carpet. She might get her tootsies wet.
Oh, put a sock in it, Elfie.
Leave him alone. She's no better than she ought to be.
Please, let me through. I'll live here.
Well, ain't that nice? We'll all come in and have a cup of cacao.
Move out of the way, please, and let the lady through.
Mind your own business. Just because your collar's turned the wrong way round, you can't spoil our fun.
That's right, Eddie. Keep your nose out of it, Parson.
Please don't fight about it.
I'll tell you what. Stop molesting the lady, please.
Do you? Then how would you like a biff on the nose?
Oh, he hit the poor man, and then he ran away, the coward. Is the clergyman badly hurt?
He hit his head, Mum, as he fell. If you asks me, he's that bad. He's bleeding something terrible. Can we bring him in, Mum? He can't lie here in the street.
Oh, why, of course. Bring him in.
Right you are, Mum. Here, Bert.
Right,
Give us a hand. Oh, yeah.
Coo, poor fella. Did you see what happened to him, mister?
Yes, I saw, my good woman. A very convincing demonstration.
What you mean?
Weren't you paid by a certain gentleman for this performance?
Oh, you knows about it, too. You must be a friend of Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, I am.
Oh, nice gentleman. He give us $5 a piece for tonight's work. We ain't through yet, though. We got to start yelling fire when somebody tells us.
I'm that somebody, my dear lady. There's Mr. Holmes now. He's inside the house.
Yes, he's opening a window.
Now he's raising his hand. That's my signal. Now to throw the rocket. There we are. Fire! Holmes, there you are. You have the photograph?
No, but I know what it is. She showed me, as I told you she would.
Oh, I'm still in the dark.
There's no mystery, old chap. When my accomplices started around the street, I had a little moist red paint in my hand. My good friend Alfie pretended to strike me. I clapped my hand to my head and fell down. It's an old trick.
Yes, I understand that, but how did my throwing the rocket help
It was
you?
all important, my dear fellow. When a woman thinks her house is on fire, her instinct is at once to rush for the thing that she values most. A married one grabs her baby. An unmarried one reaches for her jewel box. In this case, of course, it was the photograph.
Where was it?
In a recess in the living room, just above the right-hand bell pull. I caught a glimpse of it as she drew it out. When I made it known that the fire was a false alarm, she replaced the photograph. As soon as I was able to, I advised her that I was feeling well enough to leave.
You didn't take the photograph then?
No, I felt that over-precipitance at this stage might ruin everything.
What do we do now?
Drive to the Langham Hotel and inform His Majesty of what has happened. Then return with him here. After that, my dear chap, the case will be ended.
This is Brownie Lodge, Your Majesty.
I'm all impatience. You are certain the photograph will still be there, Mr. Holmes? I have every reason to believe so, Your Majesty. I must confess this is going to be something of an ordeal. Then I suggest that you let me do the talking, Your Majesty. I think I know how to handle the lady.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I believe.
Yes, I am Mr. Holmes, but how did you know?
My mistress told me you would be likely to call. She has left for the continent with her husband.
You mean she's left England?
Never to return.
Then the papers and the photograph. All is lost. We'll soon see. Follow me.
He said you'd be looking for something. I hope you'll find it.
This was the bell rope. Sliding panel behind it. Here it is. Is the photograph there, Mr. Holmes? There is a photograph, Your Majesty, but it's a photograph of the lady alone. Here's a letter, and it's addressed to me.
What does it say, Holmes?
My dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, you really did it very well. Until after the fire alarm, I had no suspicion. But then when I realized how I had betrayed myself, I began to think. I'd been warned that if the king employed an agent, he would certainly employ you. May I congratulate you on your disguise as a dear old clergyman?
Great Scott, he was much more clever than you thought, Holmes.
Yeah, go on. What else does it say?
And my husband and I both thought that the best recourse was flight. So you will find the nest empty. As to the photograph of the king and myself, His Majesty may rest in peace. Oh, thank goodness for that. I love and am loved by a better man than he. I leave another photograph, however, that he might care to possess. And I remain, dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, very truly yours, Irene Norton, née Adler. What a woman, Watson. What a woman. What a magnificent woman. She fooled me completely. But, I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I've been unable to bring your business to a more successful conclusion.
On the contrary, my dear sir, nothing could be more successful. I know that Irene's word is inviolate. The incriminating photograph is now as safe as if it were in the fire.
Well, I'm glad to hear Your Majesty say so.
I'm immensely indebted to you. Pray tell me in what way I can reward you. This beryl ring that I wear, I should be proud.
Your Majesty has something that I should value even more highly.
You have but to name it.
This photograph, sir.
Irene's photograph? But certainly. However, you must let me give you something more substantial.
No, Your Majesty. This is something I shall treasure all my life. This and a golden sovereign I received from the lady's hand. They will remind me that I was once tricked by a woman. A woman that I shall never forget.
Gee, Doctor, what a woman that Mrs. Adler. Or should I say Mrs. Norton. That's the kind of woman I could really go for.
Yes, I believe you could. Just between ourselves, you know, I sort of could go for her myself.
She was intelligent.
She was rich.
And beautiful. That's the kind of woman you want sitting next to you in front of a cozy fire on a nippy fall night. Just the three of you.
The three of you?
Mm-hmm. You, she, and a glass of Petri port.
Mr. Bartell.
Well, why not?
That
Petri California port is some wine. Boy, that Petri family really knows how to make good wine, all right. And no wonder. Look at all the experience they've had. Ever since they started the Petri business way back in the 1800s, the Petri family has handed down from father to son, the art of selecting perfect, sun-ripened California grapes and making them into clear, fragrant, delicious wine. Those letters, P-E-T-R-I, on the label of every bottle of Petri wine are the personal assurance of the Petri family that every drop of wine in that bottle is good wine. It's got to be, because Petri took time to bring you good wine. Well, Dr. Watson, that was a great story you told us tonight.
I thought you'd like it, Mr. Bartell. That's why I plan to tell you a sequel to it next week.
A sequel? Say, that sounds exciting, Doctor.
Well, I think you'll find it proves to be, Mr. Bartell. It's a story that takes place 20 years after tonight's adventure. And once again, the principal part is played by a woman. Only in this case, it isn't Irene Adler. It's her daughter. Oh, and now, Mr. Bartell, before I go, I want to remind our listeners that they owe a real debt of gratitude to the selective service boards in their communities. At this moment, those selective service boards are working harder than ever, making sure that every returning veteran knows his rights and privileges. And the boards are helping him take full advantage of those rights and privileges. And they're helping our veterans get jobs. Our selective service boards deserve our sincere thanks, and they deserve our cooperation. They have done, and they are doing, a splendid job.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and is an adaptation of the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, A Scandal in Bohemia. Music is by Dean Fosler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invite you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studios. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petrie family. For a solid hour of exciting mystery dramas, listen every Monday on most of these same stations at 8 o'clock to Bulldog Drummond, followed immediately by Sherlock Holmes.
This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.